Hello everyone, I am Shade Cameron, Communications and PR Lead at the Guyana Tourism Authority. Today I'm joined by Professor Hitesh Mehta, a world expert in ecotourism and ecolodge design. The Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce and the Guyana Tourism Authority have an ongoing partnership with the Guyana Development Initiative on developing and implementing projects to support tourism development and economic diversification in Guyana. Professor Hitesh, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. I know your stay in Guyana has been extremely hectic, but of course it has been productive. But before we get into the meat of today's session, would you mind just giving us a little bit of a background on who you are and what really led you towards this path of, sustainability, ecolodge design, that sort of thing?
Thank you, Shade. So I am originally from Kenya, but my ancestry is from India. What you would say be a third generation Kenyan. So I'm still a Kenyan citizen. I'm also a US citizen. And in terms of my experience and education, I've got professional degrees in architecture, landscape architecture, and I'm also a protected area planner. I work on the protection of some of the most endangered species on the planet. I'm also an academic as well. I am a professor at the Florida International University. I am an author. I've written several books. I do research. I've got about 10 papers out there, research papers as well. So I wear many different hats. I sit on the board of the Global Ecotourism Network, which is the umbrella ecotourism network, and have probably designed more ecolodges than anybody out there. So I design ecolodges and other projects around the world. So I've now worked in over 67 countries in the world. So
that is a pretty impressive portfolio. And of course, that kind of global experience is exactly what we're looking to bring in Guyana as we continue along our sustainable tourism development journey. Let's take it back to October 2024, which would have marked the activation of this partnership. In addition to hosting, an ecotourism workshop with the indigenous communities and conducting ecolodge assessments, you also delivered a keynote presentation on authentic ecotourism. Now, what does this term authentic ecotourism mean to you, and how can Guyana truly embody it?
Yeah. So when I was invited to deliver that presentation, it was part of a larger project or program by the GTA, which was really to build awareness amongst people in Guyana, including the indigenous communities, you call them the Amerindians, on what is really ecotourism and what is ecolodges. Because Guyana has been in like a little bit of a bubble over the years. And so the idea was to try and come in, because a lot of people are using the word ecotourism, they're using the word ecolodges without truly understanding what it is. So that's what I was brought in for. And I delivered that presentation to the public here in Georgetown. After that, the main part of that first phase of the trip was to conduct an ecolodge planning and design workshop. It's a 5-day intensive workshop. It's one of a kind. I'm the only one who does it in the world. I've now done it in about 15 other countries. But that workshop, the 5-day workshop, was the first time in South America that a workshop like that was held, and that was in Guyana. So, this is a fantastic effort by the Ministry of Tourism, by GTA, and the funders to bring this kind of workshop. And I have to say that the mix of the participants is the best that I've ever had in any workshop in the world, but particularly when it comes to the indigenous communities. Out of the 38 participants, 19 or no, not even 38, I think there was 35. So more than 50% of the participants were indigenous communities. And so for me, that was fantastic. And the next part of my trip, and which is awareness, it was an awareness building trip, was that again, the ministry is looking was at that time looking at trying to create a guidelines booklet, a how-to booklet for Ecolodge planning and design. And so with a group of trainees, I went around Guyana to start working on the research for that book. Okay. And I'll talk about that book later on.
In a little bit, yes. But before we move on to the next question, how do you think your presence here in Guyana has been received by the indigenous communities who are working towards their tourism development?
From all the feedback that I have been getting, it has been superb. I've been welcomed by them in the places, in their villages that I've been to. We've been working together. And you know, you have to remember though that I have been working with indigenous communities for 30 years now. It started in northern Kenya with the Pokot community. And since then, I've worked with about 35 different indigenous communities in all, like about 4 or 5 continents in the world.
Okay.
So I've already built a good understanding about how to work with indigenous communities. And so it's been great here in Guyana. I find the communities here really switched on. These are people who truly want to make a difference. And it gives me a lot of pleasure to be able to be with them and give my experiences and pass it on to them.
Okay. And of course, that really does speak to the authenticity of what we try to promote here for our tourism product. So moving on to the next question. During this same presentation, Mr. Karmu Bash, our director, he addressed the need to strengthen Guyana's lodging sector. So from your experience, what makes an eco-lodge truly successful, both economically as well as environmentally?
So I guess before I can sort of answer that question, it's very important first to understand what an eco-lodge is. Because here in Guyana, everybody who is in nature is just calling themselves eco-lodges.
Yes.
When actually probably maybe one of them is, or maybe none, kind of thing. And the reason is because the criteria system for eco-lodges, which is what I had come up with in 2002 when I did my first book on international eco-lodge guidelines. So for you to be an eco-lodge, you have to meet like 5 of 11 criteria. So there's a criteria that would make you be an eco-lodge. Mm-hmm. And so there are 5 criteria. And so within that 5 criteria, there are 3 that are a must. And that is that you need to help protect nature, you need to make sure that you are, the local communities are benefiting, you're providing interpretation. Those are the 3 main pillars of ecotourism. That sort of answers your question a little bit, because eco-lodges can only be found in ecotourism. And ecotourism has these 3 pillars which are very unique to it in many ways. And that is why the United Nations, I think, what was it, in 2013, identified only one type of tourism that is truly making a difference to indigenous communities, to helping alleviate poverty, and that's working on conservation of nature. And that is ecotourism. That's authentic ecotourism.
Okay. And I think we can all agree that this is the kind of balance that is truly necessary for the success of any destination.
Oh, yes.
Now, let's focus a little bit on your current visit in Guyana.
Yes.
You worked in Parima and Pakuri villages as a pilot to provide technical on-site assistance to these communities. Yeah. This was guided by the new authentic Eco-Lodge training and design guideline. What are some of the key strategies outlined in this manual that are the most critical for Guyana at this stage of its tourism development?
That's a great question. And the trip that I'm almost completing here has been memorable, it has been productive, not only for me, but from what I've seen on the ground for the indigenous communities, both of Parima and of Pakuri. Each community had already started developing a product, but both the products have been on a standstill. And so this is where GTA and their funders came in and said, let's do the next stage of your work, which is to try and create awareness amongst communities, but on the ground now. So instead of the mountain coming to you, we have been going to the mountain. In this case, the mountain are the indigenous communities. So we went, and this is the rainy season.
Yeah.
And so we went to Parima, and as you know, the airstrip there is not working. So we had to fly into Camarang and then take this long boat ride, no cover at all.
It was an adventure.
It was an adventure. And what was amazing, and this is the beauty about these things, is when you go with good thoughts and you go with good intent, things start developing for you.
Yeah.
Right? In a good way. In the 3 days we were in Parima, we did not get any rain at all. And we were able to do our work with the communities. And I was just pleasantly surprised by Parima, because that was the first trip. It's one of the most idyllic villages I've come across anywhere in the world. And the people there are so happy, and they're going about doing their work in just such a peaceful, wonderful way. And it gave me such joy that I was able to transfer some of my 36 years of experience in this field to the local communities, work with them, and create something that will really help them sustain their livelihoods and helpfully grow them as a community. So Parima was very good. Same thing happened in Pakuri the last 3 days, where we are doing a different project for them, which is they've got this great waterfront area, what they call the landing. And it's a wonderful destination for people from Georgetown to go to during weekends, during Heritage Day, your Heritage Day, during the Pakuri Anniversary Day. And so we are now helping them develop. In fact, they've now taken ownership as well, just like with the Parima community. It is their project, they've taken ownership. I am just a guide. I'm just helping them a little bit the direction that they should go to create a world-class international destination.
So it's safe to say that these are your key takeaways from visiting these villages, and your next trip to Guyana would be more for leisure rather than
I'm hoping to bring my wife. My wife loves traveling, and she loves to eat local foods. We've been getting some great.
Of course.
And I'm vegan, and so it's amazing how just wonderful food I've been, tasty, delicious food, all the provisions and everything. And I love my fruit, and some of the tropical fruit here in Guyana has been
I know.
delicious and tasty. So yeah, it has been a wonderful experience. The shows have been great. The people on the ground have been great. We've been able to involve kids and getting them, 8-year-old kids, 7-year-old kids to come in and participate in the planning and design. And so this is basically the document, that was created by GTA with the help of the funders. And I helped do it with, of course, some of the original work that came from the trainees as well. And it is the planning, design, and construction guidelines for ecolodges in Guyana. I have to say that having been involved for 25 years in creating guidelines for ecolodges. I've done this before in 3 other countries. Guyana was my 4th country, but I would say that Guyana is the first country in the world to have a manual for planning and design guidelines for ecolodges. So I have to commend all the people who are involved in the production of this. And this guideline manual has been done in such a way that anybody out there, doesn't have to be only indigenous communities, it could be any private operators. They are looking at, or private people, families, couples, wanting to do ecolodges or any kind of center or any kind of building in nature areas. This is a how-to, step-by-step book to doing it in an eco and socially friendly way. And you can see now, Guyana is the proud holder of the first manual book. So this book is what we now used while we were in the field as well, to show them how to work on the process of design and building. So
that is very impressive. Continuing along the manual that we recently launched, once implemented well, what impact do you believe this manual and your guidance can have on Guyana's tourism industry over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Well, I would say tremendous. If it's properly followed, what ecolodges do is they are low impact lodging and accommodation facilities in nature. And so when we talk about climate change, they're climate friendly developments, right? Accommodations. They help protect nature, they help local communities from a financial point of view, as well as from a cultural point of view. And they will also help local guides get jobs and become good interpreters, etc. So a good ecolodge is very kind to the environment. The way it dissipates its sewage, the way it conserves water and resources it, the way it uses energy, whether it's solar power or whatnot. At the end of it, it's a very holistic approach to the tourism industry and accommodations. And by improving the accommodation experience, what Guyana is doing, it's now taking another step to becoming a truly international destination. So I'll give you an example. Right now, this year, they've been talking about how experiential tourism experiential luxury tourism is the #1 trend right now in the world. You look at Travel and Leisure magazine, you look at Condé Nast Traveler, BBC, CNN, all of them early this year said, this is the trend. Interestingly enough, in the ecotourism industry, we've been doing it for 30 years now. The main traditional tourism industry has just woken up. So this particular manual and the whole Ecolodge concept will truly, if it's done properly, will bring in some very good, high-paying, quality tourism to Guyana.
And that's it. We want the growth, but of course the right kind, where the community leads and the quality of the experiences stay high. Now, I have one last question for you before we wrap up. What message would you like to leave to the Guyanese stakeholders, the Tushals, entrepreneurs, and policymakers who are interested in making ecotourism in Guyana a success?
I'm already seeing some very good positive steps. That's also why I'm here, is because I've always had this connection to Guyana. You know, you'll be surprised, but way back when I was playing cricket in Kenya, I had a dream of visiting the Burda ground and watching a test match at the Burda. Yes. I was a big West Indies follower, and I ended up meeting Clive Lloyd at the Buckingham Palace in many years ago. I won't tell you when because then you'll know my age. But so I have always had this connection to Guyana, and I always wanted to visit it. And when I started reading more and more about the efforts you guys have already started taking in ecotourism, with the efforts taken by the indigenous communities, the Reva Lodge and the Surama. I've been wanting to visit Ivokrama 23 years ago. So I've already had this sort of interesting connection to Guyana. And there's already good efforts being taken. And so if you were to ask me for advice on this, I would say that it's very important to understand the main concepts of ecotourism and the main concepts of ecolodges, so that you don't do, because right now I'm seeing there's a little bit of greenwashing going on. People are calling themselves what they are not. So majority of the places that are calling themselves ecolodges are not ecolodges. Many of the people who are saying they are practicing ecotourism are really not practicing what are the real, as per the definitions, internationally accepted definitions and principles on that. So if we continue working on that, which is already happening. So it's actually a lot of positive things going on, and it's just taking everything step by step. And I'd say what GTA is doing, what the ministry, as the ministry is doing, is the right way to go about it, is to ensure that there are local people who are being trained in this, so then they can continue training others, and also to go to the villages themselves and to the communities and help them right there on the ground. That is as good as it gets. For me, this is one of the most satisfying trips I've ever made, for what I believe true architecture, true landscape architecture needs to be. It is to be with the local communities and help them on the ground.
And that really is something that every Guyanese should be proud of hearing from you.
Yes, yes, for sure.
So I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. And I would also like to thank you on behalf of the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, and the Guyana Tourism Authority, and the Guyana Development Initiative for all the work that you have been doing to help us propel our tourism developmental journey.
You're welcome.
We look forward to seeing the fruits of this project.
Yes, me too. I'm looking forward to as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Professor Hitesh, the Guyana Tourism Authority, and the Guyana Development Initiative are working with local trainers to ensure the program's sustainability for continued Ecolodge development across Guyana, including villages interested in expanding their ecotourism product. Persons wanting to know more about this project can reach out to the Guyana Tourism Authority via phone at 219-009-326 or send us an email to info@guyanatourism.com. The government of Guyana will continue to support initiatives like these to develop communities across Guyana. Thank you.